The Great Egg Harbor Watershed Association was created in 1990, and it came into being out of the study of the Great Egg Harbor River to be included into the Wild and Scenic River System. The river was designated 129 miles and 17 tributaries were designated in 1992, and there was a management plan that was created to manage the Wild and Scenic designation. This was 1992. It was a unique first in New Jersey for a Wild and Scenic river to be locally managed. So there was no federal lands, and the Great Egg Harbor River was the first Wild and Scenic river to be locally managed. The Watershed Association was the host organization, and there needed to be local buy-in to have this Wild and Scenic designation. So there were 12 municipalities that did formal resolutions to support the plan, and basically those 12 towns and the Watershed Association agreed to implement the management plan forever for the Great Egg Harbor River. So around about 2000, since the Great Egg was the first one, it took a while to get figured out exactly what was going to happen, and around 2000 the plan was published. The River Council was created, which is the 12 towns, each have a seat on the council, and the Watershed Association has a seat, so there's 13 seats, and there was a requirement at that point for an administrator to run the council. So the position came up, and I was involved as a trustee of the Watershed Association, and we really couldn't find anyone who knew about the river or really cared about it to apply for the job. So I applied for it, and here I am. I grew up in Brigantine, and I kind of jokingly say it was BC, which was before casinos. And Brigantine was a dead end. You can only get in and out one way. Back in those days, your parents would just let you ride your bike anywhere you wanted and go out for hours and hours. And I would go in the ocean, swimming a lot. I did rubber rafting. I would be in the bay boating, canoeing, fishing, water skiing. The island of Brigantine had, the ends of it were largely undeveloped with big bayberry stands, and we'd ride our bikes and just go out and walk on the beach and things like that. So I really got connected to the environment. So my upbringing really connected me to the environment. My wife was pretty much a stay-at-home mom, but she liked the environment, and she began to get involved in environmental issues, taking the kids along with her, and I'd be going to work every day. And one of the first issues she got involved with was when the state required all the counties to have solid waste management plans, and there was a need to either have a dump in Atlantic County for solid waste or an incinerator. And she got involved in that, and that led to being interested in the river, and then lobbying Congress and the state to have the Wild and Scenic designation. The Great Egg Harbor River was the first partnership Wild and Scenic river. So the Watershed Association became the manager, and we are supported by grants from the federal government. Congress really liked the idea that it's a way to protect rivers without having to buy them. Since 1992, today there's 12 partnership Wild and Scenic rivers in 7 states. So we don't technically have any powers. The River Council is an advisory group. We also are closely connected with the National Park Service. They're the federal entity that oversees the implementation of the management plan. I'm a very staunch supporter and promoter of open space preservation. We can put a value on jobs and income and perhaps development, but we need to balance that by putting a value on undeveloped land, ecosystem services, and those types of things. I do a lot of thinking about this, and I've come to the conclusion that we kind of have a growth addiction, if you will, that we think we need to have growth, and that's somehow that growth equals prosperity. Based on my perception of reality, it's a myth. And what I saw that some towns would do maybe more than others is they would be convinced that growth equaled prosperity and that they wanted to have more growth and development, the more the better. And they would offer subsidies to attract development, like payment in lieu of taxes or, removal of certain rules and regulations. And I think their thinking was that, well, when the external costs came in, the infrastructure costs, the school costs, the costs that really weren't tied directly in with the development, when those costs came in, they would just raise municipal taxes to pay for them. So it was like they could go along with what the developers wanted, and then the public would just, have to pay for them, whatever the costs were. When we have bricks and mortar development, when we build buildings and roads and things like that, the value for those activities is at the highest when we build them. So they're most valuable when they're new, and the people that build them are making the profits for their bottom line. So they're buying the land, building the development, and selling it for a profit. Then they go away, and those developments begin to depreciate in value. So if we don't keep reinvesting in them to maintain them, they depreciate. And most assets, it's an accounting function of depreciation. On the other side, if we invest money in natural lands, the value doesn't depreciate. The value for the land that we paid for it stays right there, and the land provides services in terms of flood control, water purification, air purification, the ecosystem services, and we benefit from those almost like an interest on money that we would put in the bank. A big part of it is the public has bought into it. There's been many bond issues. It costs the public money, and I personally think that it's a very fair way to preserve land and provide recreational and environmental values to people. And it's fair because what we're doing is we're agreeing as a society that we'll pay fair market value for the land for whoever owns it, private property owners. So we'll pay them a fair market value, and we'll buy the rights to protect those properties fair and square. And I think that's important because it's not trying to protect environmental values by regulation, which kind of imposes on property owners and maybe takes some of their rights away. So by buying land outright is a fair way to do it.